I've made a lot of videos, responding to authoritarians and debunking their arguments. But of all the videos I've responded to, none of them have really made me angry. Sure, maybe I'd get a little bit frustrated if somebody said something ridiculously stupid, but I've never gotten full-on angry. That is until this video from Kulinski. A small business in Oregon was destroyed by the government because the owners didn't want to bow down to a liberal agenda. The owner was brought to tears over having her livelihood destroyed, and Kulinski not only celebrates the government destroying the business, but also laughs at the owner who's crying about it. I shouted expletives when I was watching this for the first time. I'm going to do my best to be professional and keep my composure while making this response, but just keep in mind there's probably going to be some strong language in this one.
The Oregon Bureau of Labor and Industries
Bureau of Labor and Industries sounds like something straight out of the Soviet Union.
Announced on Monday that the owners of the bakery Sweet Cakes by Melissa violated a state non-discrimination ordinance when they refused to sell a wedding cake to a lesbian couple.
Yeah, I'm really not too concerned with what the opinion of the Soviet Bureau of Labor and Industries is on this issue because it doesn't really concern them. It's not their business, it's not their property, they don't get to call the shots there. All those worthless bureaucrats should just leave the bakery alone and go mind their own business. I mean, sure, you can criticize the bakery for their decision, but at least they get their funding voluntarily. I mean, if what the Bureau of Labor and Industries does is so dang important, then why do people have to be forced to pay for them?
So now they may have to pay the couple as much as $150,000.
Whoa, holy shit. That is an obscene amount of money. Imagine being a small business owner, already running on thin margins as it is, and then all of a sudden you have to cough up $150K, all because some spoiled brats couldn't be bothered to just go to a different bakery. There's lawsuits involving horrible mutilations and permanent injuries that aren't awarded this much.
Even though that number is not concrete yet, there's going to be a future hearing where they give the specific number, but we do know now that they're going to have to pay something.
The fact that you can get sued for not parroting beliefs you don't agree with is in and of itself frankly quite absurd. Like, if this couple was awarded anything, any amount above $0.00, that would be too much. In fact, if I was the judge on that case, not only would I have thrown it the fuck out, but I'd also make the couple pay the bakery for wasting their time in court.
So this is the bakery that spoke at the Values Voters Summit last year, and when they did, this happened.
So the clip you're about to watch is absolutely gut-wrenching. Like, this woman is visibly in tears over having her business destroyed. Like, you can legit hear the sadness and despair in her voice as she describes how her passion and livelihood were destroyed. It's legit hard to stomach. I can barely bring myself to watch it.
For me personally, when I would sit down with them, I just would want to know everything about her wedding, and I'd want to know about her flowers, her dress, the centerpieces, her colors, the way her hair was going to be. I wanted to see her ring. I even would talk about, where are you going on your honeymoon? And I would use all this information to help me design the perfect cake that reflected them as a couple. Sorry, I don't mean to get emotional. It just really touches my heart. But anyways, I would sit with them, and I would sit and sketch up designs, and sometimes it would take, several different designs until we got the perfect cake that just matched them. And sometimes it would take 2 hours of sitting in a cake tasting. And if they chose me to do their cake, I'm sorry. Sure. I would just feel so honored to be able to be a part of such an amazing, special day.
So conservatives pounced on this situation and tried to frame it like she's the victim.
So, Kyle, what if somebody came out and forced you to parrot conservative viewpoints on your show and threatened to violently extort $150K from you if you refused? I'd imagine you'd probably be considering yourself a victim in that scenario.
She cried, therefore she's the victim.
Mr. Strawman, give me a break.
The argument is she was discriminated against, which is interesting because she's the one that did the discriminating.
There is very clearly a discriminatory element to the way that these laws are being enforced. In other similar cases, where gay bakers decline to make cakes with anti-gay messages on them, these same courts would often uphold their right to refuse to create art that depicts a message they disagree with. In the Colorado case involving Jack Phillips, it was a very clear aspect of the case that there were other bakeries that were similarly refusing to make cakes because they depict a message they disagree with, and that Mr. Phillips' bakery in particular was being targeted for religious reasons. Further adding credulence to the idea that religious discrimination may be a play, evidence has surfaced in the Jack Phillips case that the gay couple who went to his bakery knew that Mr. Phillips would most likely decline to make their cake and intentionally went there to cause drama.
She's the one that said, I'm not going to give you a cake because you're gay.
Is false.
She never said she wasn't going to serve them because they're gay. Much like in the Jack Phillips case, this woman was perfectly willing to sell the couple any other product in the store. She just wasn't going to make a cake for their same-sex wedding.
So I want every anti-gay bigot out there.
So you do realize that being against same-sex marriage doesn't automatically make someone an anti-gay bigot. It's completely within the realm of possibility that someone might be opposed to same-sex marriage, but not necessarily have it out for gay people personally.
To watch this and soak it in. Watch that part where she cries and watch it over and over and over because they went bankrupt because of this.
Well, no surprise there. Small businesses usually run on very thin margins. And now they suddenly have to cough up $500,000. No wonder the place went bankrupt. Well, I guess chalk up another one for small businesses being destroyed by liberal policies. Even if they did win the case and there's no judgment against them, having to waste time and resources in court would still probably be pretty difficult for a small business. That's why I'm personally a fan of what's called the loser's fee. That's basically when you force whoever lost the case to pay for the winner's attorney and court fees. The purpose of this is basically to deter frivolous litigation, as this would mean there is now a risk associated with filing bullshit lawsuits. In a lot of places that implement this, the loser has to pay the winner's attorney fees and court fees. In my opinion, they should also have to compensate them for the time they wasted in court. A lot of places, as far as I'm aware, don't do that.
And what you just saw was the equivalent of people saying they don't want to serve black couples at a diner.
No.
The couple wasn't being refused service because they're gay. The couple was perfectly free to purchase any pre-made product already in the store. At that particular business, they just don't serve cakes for same-sex weddings. That's it. It's in no way comparable to someone being told they're not going to be served because of their membership in a particular class.
And then crying when they get fined over it.
So Kyle, if I put a gun to your head and told you to hand over $150,000 because I disagree with how you're using your property, you'd probably be crying too.
I have zero sympathy for her. I have zero sympathy.
I have zero sympathy for the couple. I mean, if they would have just taken a moral high road and went to a different bakery, then maybe I'd feel some sympathy for them. But instead, they decided to throw a childish tantrum and get their petty revenge against this small business owner because, boo-hoo, they didn't have things their way. To the couple who sued this bakery, I have a simple question. Are you happy? A business that someone poured their blood, sweat, and tears into, that they devoted their entire life to, was destroyed. The owner was brought to tears, all because you couldn't be bothered to just find a different bakery. Like someone deserved to have their life and career ruined for imposing onto you the minor inconvenience of having to find a different bakery.
In fact, I celebrate that fine. I celebrate the fact that they went out of business. Because here are the rules. They're very simple. You could either play by the game or don't have a business.
What you just said is one of the most insanely idiotic things I have ever heard. At no point in your rambling, incoherent response were you even close to anything that could be considered a rational thought. Everyone in this room is now dumber for having listened to it. I award you no points, and may God have mercy on your soul.
Wow, there's so much stupidity in that one short clip. I'm gonna need to go in and break it down carefully.
In fact, I celebrate that fine.
Wow, what an asshole.
So you support someone being physically threatened with violence if they don't hand over a portion of their hard-earned money because they don't want to be forced to parrot viewpoints they don't agree with. Well, nice to see where your moral priorities are, Kyle. And I have a feeling your opinion would be different if the shoe was on the other foot. If someone threatened to extort massive amounts of money from you because you didn't want to parrot conservative viewpoints on your show, I'd imagine you wouldn't take too kindly to that.
I celebrate the fact that they went out of business.
You're a douche. That's pretty much it. You're a douche.
Wow, Kyle, how low can you fucking get? You're celebrating the fact that someone had their career, livelihood, and business destroyed, all because they hold viewpoints you disagree with? What an asshole. I'm sorry, I usually try to be nice when I make these videos, but no, it needs to be said, Kyle's being a straight up douchebag here.
Because here are the rules. They're very simple. You could either play by the game or don't have a business.
And it's at this point that we see Kyle puts his arrogant, control freak, moral white horse douchebaggery on full display. Kyle here thinks he knows how to run your life better than you do. So much so that he gets to unilaterally dictate what the rules are at every business, and if you don't like that, well then you just don't get to have a business. Because Kyle said so. God, what an arrogant, control freak douche.
The rules are you don't get to discriminate based on arbitrary standards.
Well, who has the final authority on what is and isn't considered arbitrary? In my opinion, the fact that you believe you have the right to go around and unilaterally dictate what the rules should be at every single business is arbitrary.
That people cannot help.
This is an appeal to emotion. The fact that a person may not be able to help the characteristic they're being discriminated for doesn't change the right that property owners have to decide who can and can't access their property.
So, for example, you cannot say, I'm kicking you out of my restaurant or my bakery because you're a woman. I'm kicking you out because you're Chinese and I don't like Chinese people. I don't like whatever your nationality is, so I'm not going to serve you, you Turkish person or Somalian person or Middle Eastern person or black person. You can't kick somebody out because of gender, nationality, religion. You can't kick somebody out because of race. And you cannot kick somebody out because of sexual orientation.
Actually, you can. If you own a piece of property, then you can kick someone out for whatever reason you want. Even if it's for a reason that you disagree with or think is unfair. It's their property, they get to call the shots. It's as simple as that. Also, you said that people shouldn't be allowed to kick someone off their property for characteristics they can't help. But two of those characteristics you listed, religion and sexual orientation, are in fact things that people choose. So there's a bit of inconsistency there.
And I need you to understand the reasoning behind it. The reasoning behind it is you're taking something that's totally subjective.
Yeah, the legitimacy of your precious government and the rules you wanted to force onto us is also subjective. So I wouldn't go throwing stones in a glass house.
And you're substantively affecting the life of another person as a result of it.
Not really. I mean, the baker never said they can't get married. They never said they can't go to a different bakery and get their cake. All they said was, we don't make cakes for same-sex weddings here. That's it. The baker wasn't really affecting their life in any substantive way by not making this cake. The only effect that that baker had on their lives, if any, is the minor inconvenience of having to go to a different bakery to get their cake.
So that's like saying, you might as well say, hey, if you have fingernails that are slightly too long, I'm kicking you out, or if you have blue eyes, I'm not going to serve you here.
I agree that those are pretty ridiculous and silly rules, and I'm sure that any business that tried implementing them would lose money, but again, if it's their property, they get to call the shots.
And just imagine a situation where that could be a fatal decision, or that could be a decision that affects somebody's life in such a negative way that they can't recover from it.
Oh my god, yes. Having to find a different bakery to make your cake is an absolutely traumatizing experience. It's equivalent to a stay in a POW camp. This poor couple will never recover from what was done to them.
So here's just one example. If you're a black family in Alabama in 1957 and your car breaks down and you happen to be in a white area of the county and every single one of the gas stations refuses to tow your car or do the necessary mechanic work because you're black, well, what happens? It's 103 degrees outside. You're with your entire family. There's nobody that you can get in touch with to help you, and there's nobody nearby who actually is willing to not discriminate against you because of your race. What happens?
Are you going to conveniently leave out the reason why those gas stations in Alabama were discriminating, like every leftist seems to do when discussing Southern segregation? Let me let you in on a little secret here, Kyle. The reason that businesses in the South weren't serving black people is because they couldn't. They were prohibited by law.
We know how devastating that could be.
Yes, we do know how devastating it can be when the government mandates segregation. In a free market where free association is respected, businesses have an incentive not to discriminate because if they do, they'll lose money to their competitors.
Look, if you're a gay couple and you're in Oregon, the argument of, well, just go to another bakery. Really? And what if in this particular area, it's a conservative area?
Alright, so right off the bat, I take umbrage with him trying to associate anti-gay sentiment with conservatives. Not all conservatives are anti-gay. As a matter of fact, I actually know some conservatives who are gay.
Yeah, and they would have to drive 150 miles in order to get to a place where there's a bakery that would serve them. How about that? Have you thought about that?
Yeah, that doesn't make a difference. You don't get to force people to provide labor for you against their will, on the grounds that it's more convenient than finding someone who's voluntarily willing to do it. Your convenience doesn't take priority over other people's rights.
You're still allowed to kick somebody out of your store or refuse service if they come in and they knock down the shelves, or if they start screaming curse words, or if they're belligerent, or if they're violent. Of course you can kick somebody out for those reasons.
Earlier in the video, you said that people shouldn't be allowed to kick someone out of their business for reasons that they can't help. But some people have certain mental and psychological conditions that cause them to behave in ways that are violent or belligerent that they can't necessarily help having. Would it be legitimate for a store owner to kick them out?
All we're saying is you can't discriminate against somebody because of arbitrary reasons.
We sort of run into the same problem as we had before. In order to enforce this, you would need someone who gets to decide what is and isn't considered an arbitrary reason. And this person would necessarily have to have authority that would supersede the right of the business owner to control their own property, which in and of itself would be arbitrary.
And what these guys are doing is they're flipping the situation. They're saying, oh, we discriminated against them, but allow our discrimination, right? But now they're crying like they're the ones being discriminated against. No, you're not being discriminated against.
So, Kyle, if someone went into a gay-owned bakery and said, make me a cake for my Westboro Baptist Church meeting that says God hates faggots, and the gay baker refuses, do you think the government should step in and force that gay baker to make that cake? If not, then you are in fact discriminating, because you're saying that it's legitimate for the government to compel someone to send a message that they're against in this scenario, but not in that scenario.
You're being justly punished for the fact that you discriminated against the gay people.
Yeah, there's nothing just about extorting money from someone just because they didn't want to send a message they don't believe or participate in a ceremony they don't agree with.
So the best way to try to comprehend this and to try to wrap your mind around this is just take out gay, put in interracial. Take out gay, put in black.
Yeah, this is a non sequitur. I'm an absolutist when it comes to free association. Even if they said we don't make cakes or interracial marriages, that would still be their right.
If there was a business that a diner that refused to serve black people because that's our beliefs. We're Christian. In the Bible it says that you should keep the tribes separate. There is justification for racism in the Bible. The Bible bans interracial marriage. So if there was an argument, that was the argument. Religious freedom, I just don't want to serve no damn interracial couples in my establishment. Well, if that happened today, that person will be slapped with a discrimination lawsuit and they would lose 100% of the time.
Yeah, anti-discrimination laws are literally slavery because they give people the right to compel service from people who don't want to serve them against their will. Compelled servitude is literally the definition of slavery.
Why the fuck should it be different if we're talking about gay people? It shouldn't be different.
Exactly. Businesses should have the same right to refuse service because of someone's sexual orientation and the exact same right to refuse service because of somebody's race. Because compelling someone to serve someone they don't want to in either scenario would be equally slavery.
If somebody's born a certain way and you're going to make them second-class citizens officially because of something that's beyond their control.
Nobody's making them second-class citizens. Nobody's saying they can't get married. Nobody's saying they can't get a cake for their wedding. The only thing they can't do is compel someone who doesn't want to make them a cake to make them a cake against their will. This isn't making them second-class citizens. Nobody else in society has a right to compel service.
You're the bad person. You're the one that's discriminating. You're the one that's intolerant. You're the one that's a bigot, and you should be fined.
Nobody should ever be fined for the beliefs that they hold, or for not parroting beliefs they don't agree with. Don't get me wrong, I am no fan of hateful or intolerant viewpoints. I'm against that just as much as anyone else. But what Kyle is calling for here is a recipe for tyranny. He takes no issue living in a world where the government can stomp on a business because of the viewpoints held by the owners, or because the business owner refuses to go along with a certain political agenda. And I think the only reason that Kyle is supporting such a state of affairs is because for the time being it's working in his benefit. He's not taking into account the possibility that the very coercive power he's advocating for could be turned against him. That Kyle could end up being forced to parrot viewpoints he doesn't agree with, or being forced to go along with a particular political agenda and being fined or having his show shut down if he refuses. Authoritarians generally see themselves as the beneficiaries of what they advocate for. They never entertain the possibility of it turning against them. In my opinion, having certain people hold racist or bigoted beliefs is a small price to pay to live in a free society. This has been Philosophossum making stupidity play dead. Until next time, take care.